Our devotional thought from the Old Testament today begins in Exodus chapter 12. I call this Promise Fulfilled. Let's begin with verse 40. The people of Israel had lived in Egypt for 430 years. In fact, it was the last day of the 430th year that all the Lord's forces left the land. On this night, the Lord kept his promise. On this night, the Lord kept his promise to bring his people out of the land of Egypt. So this night belongs to him. I like that. So this night belongs to him. And it must be commemorated every year by all the Israelites from generation to generation. Now, let's take a look and continue with that, all right? Exodus 12, verse 2. From now on, this month will be the first month of the year for you. Exodus 12, verse 14. This is the day to remember. Each year from generation to generation, you must celebrate it as a special festival to the Lord. It is a law for all time. Genesis 12, verse 17. Celebrate this festival on unleavened bread, for it will remind you how I brought your forces out of the land of Egypt on this very day. This festival will be a permanent law for you. Celebrate it this day from generation to generation. Now we know that Jesus fulfilled the ceremonial law. But there's a principle here. And as Paul would tell us, these things are written for our instruction. Number one, God fulfills his promises. And number two, when God fulfills his promises, forgive me, he likes to be remembered for it. He likes it to be a permanent testimony in our families. Now, brothers and sisters, there are miracles that God does for us on a daily basis. But then there are some extraordinary things that God does. There are things that God has done for us that, forgive me, it's mind-boggling. And every family has one or two of those. That just, would you look at what God just did? Can I make a suggestion to you? Make it a permanent part of your family culture that every year you remember that day when God fulfilled his promise. Every year, I remember December 29. That was the day after 20 years of struggle, God set us free, and we became debt-free as a church. Now, these last 2 years with lockdown, we haven't been able to get together for our regular celebration, but we will again this year. Every year as a board, we gather together, our ECS gathers together, and we celebrate. All the struggles are forgotten. And we remember on this day, God fulfilled his promise. What are the great miracles that God has done for your family? And what are you doing to never forget and to always be thankful?